are so important and the reason why we're so proud to be headquartered here in Pittsburgh. I'd like to thank Senator Costa for being here, Representative Abney, Jen with the Pittsburgh Robotics Network, our good friends at the Pittsburgh Tech Council who have been fantastic partners for us. Thank you so much, Audrey. As well as the team from the Allegheny Conference and Northside Chamber, Secretary Hosen, and also, of course, our guest of honor, Governor Shapiro. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you. A little bit about the company and why it's, why we're so excited. And this mission, behind me here rings true to every gecko here. When we started the company we were really just fascinated about a world that not many people think about, and it's the world that we rely on every single day, our infrastructure, energy, defense, manufacturing, public infrastructure like the bridges outside. I found this problem actually at Grove City College, where I was going to school for electrical engineering, about an hour north of here, and got a chance to go to a power plant. This crazy guy named Jeff was wild enough to let me into try to take a look at the power plant, and 40% of the year this power plant had shutdowns. Okay, and they were losing about $1 million every day that they were down. And the only way to solve the shutdowns was to stop explosions from happening of pressure vessels inside of this power plant. And so in college, I got to see this firsthand in a very unique way that I don't think may have been possible outside of Pennsylvania. Got access to see why this was happening, and the only way to stop it, what Jeff was telling me, was sending a person up 100 feet up in the air to try to evaluate the structural integrity of a tube, a pressure vessel tube. And that person, a year before I got there, fell and died doing that job. And that was meant so much to me at the time, but it also helped highlight for me that we don't really know a lot about the built world that we rely on every single day. And also, as we build things new into the future, we're not improving the state of understanding the health of the built world. So, in college, I built a wall climbing robot to help solve the problem for that power plant an hour north of here, and it ended up saving $30 to $40 million for that facility that year, and it also drove this curiosity about what else in the built world, whether it be a bridge or a dam or a destroyer or a tank or a pipeline. What other problems may exist out there that, if they fail, could not only harm people and environment, but also can bring down large companies and jobs. And so, for the past 11 years, we've been building Gecko, bootstrapped in the beginning, down to $100 in the bank account, the classic story. We moved out to California in 2016, but we're so compelled to come back to this region, to Pittsburgh, after spending 6 months out in California, turning down VCs that tried to keep us there, but instead we wanted to be close to our customers, but also, I think, close to a community that was so passionate about a field that they were leading, and that was and is robotics here in Pittsburgh. We have some of the best minds in robotics here in Pittsburgh, and building software from a foundation of data from that we gather with the robots has allowed for a business model that's actually pragmatic and making large impacts and changes in the world, trying to solve how do you go from a D grade of your infrastructure and take it to a B. Roughly, it's projected to be a $5 trillion problem. But what we're trying to do is inject technology to try and understand how do you reduce the burden and make things that we rely on every day last way longer, while not wondering if the bridge you're going to cross here in Pittsburgh, for example, may collapse at any time. To drive this point home, out of the 3,500 bridges here in Pittsburgh, 13% are structurally deficient. What we're trying to do, and I think what the governor is showing and pioneering, especially through the work with I-95, is that Pennsylvania is a state that entrepreneurs and founders and investors should be flooding towards, because there is actual pragmatic change that can occur, regulations and existing ways of doing things, the old way that is shown to be able to be disrupted because of leadership, and Governor Shapiro's leadership is why I'm so excited to be based in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, to try to drive change as we introduce Industry 4.0 principles. So, I will stop talking because I could go on, but I would love to. All right, I'd love to introduce Senator Costa, who's going to be here next. So, Senator.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jake. Thank you very much, Jake, and thank all of you for joining us here this morning. I want to say thank you certainly to the governor for coming here, working to make sure that we talk about some of the things we just heard. Thinking about that we now have a plan in place that the governor's trying to implement, that 10-year plan for how we deal with economic development in this Commonwealth. And certainly a major part of that, there's 5 pillars to that. One of them is robotics and technology, and I think that's what's important here. What we heard the story about is there are a number of robotic companies here in southwestern Pennsylvania. And what we need to be able to do is bring more folks like Jake, letting them know out in California they can't come to Pennsylvania to be able to make a home here, grow a business here. And knowing that they have an investment that's going to take place from the administration, but also the investment that's going to take place from the workforce that's here, the talented workforce. When you look at the governor's plan, whether it be in agriculture, energy, robotics, manufacturing, technology, life sciences, all those things are incumbent upon all of us to be able to recognize what we can do as a Commonwealth. And that's why it's imperative to have a plan in place to be able to do that. And that's what we have. Now we have to convince members of the General Assembly that we need to get it across the finish line. Whether it be site development or other workforce types of development along those lines, those are all going to be a big part of the conversation to take place. But what's important here, the governor again came to Pittsburgh to visit a place where these type of things are taking place. And when you think about infrastructure, thinking about how we're combining robotics with assessing infrastructure and the like, these are the type of things that are important to make it more efficient and safer. So it's exciting to be here with all of you today. Thank you, Governor, for coming. Thank you, most importantly, for developing a 10-year plan that we're going to be able to implement as we go forward to attract more companies like Geico here to Pittsburgh and southwestern Pennsylvania and this Commonwealth as a whole. Thanks, Governor.
Thanks, Senator. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Ariane Abney. I have the pleasure and the honor of representing all of my neighbors, the 19th Legislative District, which includes where we are here today in Pittsburgh. I want to first and foremost welcome Governor Shapiro back to the district, back to Pittsburgh. I want to thank him for his leadership and his bold vision for putting forward a plan for economic development across this Commonwealth that's going to benefit not only current, but also future generations. Now, we know that our Commonwealth is really uniquely positioned to be able to think globally, but also be able to act locally. And we live in a rapidly evolving and changing world where we see new technologies and economies of scale that are coming forth almost every day. And we know that we live in basically a 24/7 world. And we can no longer afford to be able to have this basic status quo of a 9-to-5 government and think that we can continue to be competitive with our even surrounding states around us who are already doing some of the investments that we're talking about today. And if anybody knows, like I know, Governor Shapiro, he is competitive as hell, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I believe that with Governor Shapiro running point guard and looking at our bracketology, and I think that Team Pennsylvania is well positioned to win this tournament on economic development. And so this 10-year strategy really takes a disciplined return on investment focused approach, while at the same time looking to modernize government for a more contemporary society. And this will allow us to really be able to reimagine what our communities and what our neighborhoods look like, and to better align our workforce with the jobs of today and for the future. And really to make Pennsylvania a state of first choice for our businesses, for individuals, and for families alike. And so the reality of the fact is we know that government alone is not going to be able to turn this 10-year plan into reality. It's going to truly take a team effort. It's going to take a cooperative and multifaceted approach, really from various sectors and various industries across this Commonwealth to reach the desired outcomes. And that includes partners and collaborations with organizations like Gecko Robotics. And so I am just honored and exceptionally excited to be a part of a plan that moves Pennsylvania forward for today, tomorrow, and into the future. I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues in Harrisburg as we head into budget season to make these type of investments that we're talking about today and to put a down payment on the advancement of our Commonwealth. And so with that, we know that we need to have partners from the business community. And so I'm really honored to be able to bring forward our next speaker, Benjamin Pratt, who is the Regional Economic Competitiveness Officer, it's a long title, at the Allegheny Conference. Benjamin?
Thanks, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. Yes, my name is Ben Pratt. I am what's colloquially referred to as the RICO for the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. And at the conference, partnerships are at the core of everything that we do. We have a rich history of bringing the region's leadership together across 10 counties in southwestern Pennsylvania to improve the economic future and equality for all. We are grateful for the Governor Shapiro's administration for the opportunity to be here today and excited about the administration's enhanced focus on improving business competitiveness for our region. Innovation and investment is a key component of the statewide economic development strategy, and currently proposed the governor's budget invests $20 million to leverage Pennsylvania's assets. This can incentivize additional private venture capital, complement federal investment opportunities already transforming the region, like the $62.7 million Build Back Better Regional Challenge Grant, to help advance the robotics and AI cluster for the region moving forward. Innovation is baked into Pittsburgh region's DNA, positioning us to lead in the development of the future-focused products and development. Recently, and through our work through the Build Back Better Regional Challenge Grant, we're focused on expanding the robotics and AI cluster and supporting its growth by focusing on 5 specific projects designed to upskill workforce, remove barriers for adoption, and support the commercialization of the robotics technology. And recently named to the 2024 Fast Company's Most Innovative Companies, Gecko Robotics is just one example that brings the region's story of innovation to life. The leveraging of autonomous technology and artificial intelligence to provide new solutions that make essential but often dull, dark, and dangerous tasks safer, more efficient, and more purposeful. This is exactly the kind of problem solving that sets the Pittsburgh region apart. With more than 140 companies here in the region, either directly advancing such solutions or contributing to autonomous solutions, the Pittsburgh region and Pennsylvania are on course to be an essential part of everything that's next in this pivotal industry. The commitment of Governor Shapiro and his administration to elevating this leadership for the world to take note of and the investment of the Commonwealth in keeping the companies positioned on cutting edge of innovation will result in Pennsylvania and the Pittsburgh region being not only a place where future-focused industries want to be, but need to be. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jen Apicella, the Executive Director of the Pittsburgh Robotics Network, to give you a little bit more color. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh, sure. Thanks for that. So thank you so much to Senator Costa, Representative Abney, Ben, and also to Gecko Robotics and Jake for opening your doors today, for participating today and having us here. The work that you're doing here is so deeply important on a global scale, helping to inspect and protect the world's most critical infrastructure assets, right? Whether it be for power, oil and gas, manufacturing, defense, and more. It's just absolutely inspiring, and it's the classic Pittsburgh story. So Gecko Robotics is a prime example of Pittsburgh's transformative impact, blending innovation with practical solutions that improve lives around the world. And so the Pittsburgh Robotics Network includes over 140 commercial robotics organizations that are operating here, employing over 7,000 people that are revolutionizing autonomy across 14 different industry markets. The depth and breadth of that is so impressive, and not just locally, but actually globally. This is an anomaly. This is not happening everywhere. It's happening here, and that's very important to understand. So Pittsburgh is one of the world's top robotics clusters, and we're referred to as the robotics capital of the world for that reason. So our work at the Pittsburgh Robotics Network is focused on accelerating the adoption of robotic solutions worldwide, and by representing the voice of this business cluster, bridging this large and dynamic business community with the rest of the world. Now, Pittsburgh is an established powerhouse for robotics and innovation, and we are now being offered the ability to scale this to a level that brings lasting stability and economic strength for decades to come across the entire Commonwealth. This region is full of creative and brilliant problem solvers who use innovation as a tool to help address some of the industry's most difficult challenges. So we don't shy away from tough problems here in Pittsburgh, right? We know that. We don't back down when faced with obstacles that seem too high to climb. We face it head on, we roll up our sleeves, we innovate, and we get the job done. Sometimes we do that too quietly, and I think that that is changing now, right? There is a need to really amp up and tell the world that this is happening, and it's happening at scale. So, and I think that this administration has a very similar and aligned approach to that and to economic development in Pennsylvania, which is fantastic. And that is making the needed investments to support and accelerate the impact that businesses like this can have, not just on our local communities, but throughout the Commonwealth, and then can be felt as a ripple effect throughout the world. So this is a strategic approach that leads directly to more companies growing their businesses here, which will then create more jobs, right, in our communities here that can provide new and expanded career pathways directly into this innovation economy, and then ultimately attract additional market opportunities and partnerships to this region, right, and make that booming market and economy that Pittsburgh once had and is on the pathway as a renaissance to have again. So, and that expands economic prosperity very broadly and directly right into our communities. So I applaud the governor and this administration for understanding that this is what success looks like for Pennsylvania, because we have a unique opportunity. It's happening to us right now. We're at a nexus moment, and it's happening in Pittsburgh and throughout Pennsylvania. The emergence of this new innovation economy, this Industry 4.0, it is happening right now, not later, and we cannot delay. All right, we cannot drag our feet. There are plenty of other regions who get it. All right, they're making strategic investments to try and capitalize on this. I'm witnessing it. I'm traveling around. I'm talking to them. So the time is now. We have to hustle. We have the edge, right? Our region has the advantage as this big global powerhouse of advanced robotics and innovation, and we have to capitalize on our strengths, be bold, lean in, move at the speed of business, and come out on top. So this is our region's legacy. The time is now. We're ready. So with that, I'd like to introduce Governor Shapiro.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all. And Jen, thank you for those inspiring words and the energy that you bring to the work you do every day. And I want to say a special thanks to two partners of mine who I get to work with in state government every day. Representative Abney, who quite correctly used a whole bunch of different basketball metaphors. I got the Dukes winning the first two games, so probably more of a hard pick than a head pick. But nevertheless, I'm feeling good about it. But I'm thankful to you, Representative Abney, for your leadership. You got a great district. And of course, to the leader in the Pennsylvania Senate, someone who's been a friend for a very, very long time, Senator Jay Costa, Leader Costa, grateful that you are here today. I want to pick up on some of the comments that Jen made in her remarks, and I want to thank her for the kind introduction and kind words about our administration. Her leadership at the Pittsburgh Robotics Network is really, really critical. I remember visiting your office a couple of years ago over in Lawrenceville. I was a candidate for governor then, and I was trying to lay out my vision for what I wanted to see economically and how we could create more jobs here in the Commonwealth. And I know that there was incredible work being done at that time, and obviously still when it came to robotics on self-driving cars and trucks and robots to help our highly skilled building trades tie rebar and safely get the job done. They would work together, and robotics in many ways was enhancing that critically important work. I stood there that day in Lawrenceville and said that we would make Pittsburgh the robotics capital of the world. And I recognized that that was a commitment we made, and now as governor, we are working to fulfill that commitment, both with the energy and passion we bring to this work and the very real resources that we're working together to try and drive toward that goal. I want you to know that we are have put together a plan to harness the power of our skilled workforce and the world-class universities we have here, like CMU and Pitt, in order to help capitalize on the businesses that are already here and take us to the next level. And so I'm proud to be back in Pittsburgh to talk about robotics, this time as your governor, to say that we are delivering on that vision to make Pittsburgh the robotics capital of the world and to make this a center of our economic progress here in the Commonwealth. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here to Gecko Robotics and to have the opportunity together to visit with Jake and his team to learn more about how they are changing the world, to talk about what we as a Commonwealth need to do to continue to help them, and to understand why Jake chose Pittsburgh to be his home of Gecko, why he chose to leave the Silicon Valley and come back here east and come back to Pittsburgh and make this home, make this the place where he could define success and disrupt an industry that was so in need of disruption. Gecko began as an idea in Jake's mind at Grove City College, just about an hour north of here. I enjoyed hearing the story of how he did that. He was inspired to build the world's first wall-climbing ultrasonic testing robot after he learned of a local power plant in Oil City was forced to shut down 4 times because they couldn't inspect the plant properly. I do also think it's amazing that they let you in there in the first place as a college student. But thank God that they did. Thank God that local power plant was willing to take a chance on Jake's big brains, on his invention. And since that day, this idea that Jake had in college has grown into a national leader that builds robots for global energy and industrial leaders like Siemens and Georgia Pacific. You'll see these robots on our bridges here in Pittsburgh and all the way across the globe in the Middle East and elsewhere. They're doing extraordinary work. And he disrupted an industry worldwide right here from the North Shore, right here from Pittsburgh. Today, Gecko builds robots that can climb the walls of oil service tanks and inspect the beams holding up our many bridges. And they've even secured big contracts with the Air Force and the Navy. Gecko is part of a strong and growing defense industry right here in Pennsylvania, from the Navy Yard in Philadelphia to right here in Pittsburgh. They remind us that Pennsylvania was and still is home to the arsenal of democracy. And it is because of the work that is happening here at Gecko that we continue to defend freedom all over the globe with the important inventions and the important work that they're developing here at Gecko. Their success shows us what is possible here in Pennsylvania and the kind of success that I want us to replicate all across this Commonwealth. That's why, and you heard this from Leader Costa before and Representative Abney, we have developed an economic development strategy. And by the way, the first time the Commonwealth has had one in 20 years, where we are focused like a laser beam on creating jobs and economic opportunity in 5 different sectors of our economy across Pennsylvania, including robotics and technology. We are leaning heavily on robotics when we think about the future success of this Commonwealth. Companies like yours, like Gecko, are going to be key to the economic vitality and success of this Commonwealth. And I will say that Pittsburgh and the companies here are consistently pushing against the boundaries of what the world once thought was impossible, testing out the future of driverless cars and trucks, sending landers to the moon. And by the way, Astrobotic will get to the moon. And I think part of our legacy of innovation here in Western Pennsylvania runs from our steel mills and the innovation that happened there to halls like this where Gecko is. And my administration is committed to supporting this type of innovation. We want to be partners to companies like Gecko to help them grow and to help them attract more businesses here to Western Pennsylvania. And so that's why we worked aggressively, as an example, just a few months ago, to bring Accelitas, a company in Massachusetts, right here to Pittsburgh, to the Strip District, to do some unbelievably important work in photonics. It's why we worked our tails off in New Kensington to bring Rebuild here and have advanced manufacturing be a home in Westmoreland County. We're investing in economic development and creating opportunity. And I want to thank Jay Costa for his vision years ago when it came to Gecko. He understood that there was something really, really special happening here. And so we invested in this place and made sure that Gecko received investments from the Commonwealth that have helped allow you to flourish the way you have. But I want to underscore, notwithstanding the important support we've provided to companies all across Pittsburgh, from Astrobotic to Gecko, There's a whole lot more we need to do if we're truly going to be competitive. Representative Abney said this, and it's true. I am competitive as hell. I want us to win. I want us to be number one at everything. I believe here in Pennsylvania, we can do big things again. I believe we can disrupt industries and create jobs along the way and connect our building trades to our universities, to those who are learning a trade in high school, to being part of our success in the future. But unfortunately, we have been losing out on opportunities to other states in recent years. You know why? Because they've made investments in economic development in a way that we simply have not. Our neighbors, like New York and New Jersey, invest a whole lot more than Pennsylvania does when it comes to economic development and opportunity. Hell, our neighbor to the west, Ohio, has 1.5 million fewer people than Pennsylvania, yet they invest 7 times more in economic development than we do here in this Commonwealth. We've got to change that, and we've got to have the resources to be able to make investments, like the kind of investment we made under Leader Costa's leadership in 2014 here in Gecko through the Ben Franklin Technology Partners, one of their initial grants, which was part of the seed of the success of this company. It's an example of what's possible when we invest in economic opportunity. And that's why in my first budget, together, Republicans and Democrats alike came together to make some down payments on economic development. But now we need to do a whole lot more. I'm asking lawmakers to approve a $20 million fund to set up a new innovation fund at the Department of Community and Economic Development so that we can take ideas like Jake, the next Jake that comes along in their college dorm room that has a big idea, and make sure that we invest some seed capital in that so they can get going. We need to support these groundbreaking technologies. Now is the time to invest. I want to close with this. I'm sure y'all don't follow state government the way Representative Abney and Leader Costa do. But let me give you some basic math. We got engineers here. They know basic math, right? Here in Pennsylvania today, we have a $14 billion surplus. That's billion with a B. Now, I laid out my budget, which lawmakers are considering, and this summer they'll go ahead and approve it. But just follow me on this. My budget makes historic investments in things like education, public safety, and of course, economic development. My budget cuts taxes. It doesn't raise them, and actually cut costs for a whole lot of families in a lot of different ways. $14 billion surplus, a big, bold, aggressive budget that invests in things that really matter and cuts taxes. And if lawmakers passed my budget as is, and I know there'll be give and take, just follow me on this. If lawmakers passed my budget as is, we'd have an $11 billion surplus at the end of it. My point here is now is the time to invest. Now is the time to take some of this capital that some politicians have squirreled away in bank accounts in Harrisburg and put it back into communities like this. Put it back into companies like this. Make sure we have the next big invention. Make sure our kids get a great education so they can work at a place like Gecko. Make sure that those who walk to their jobs can walk down safe streets so that they can get to and from work safely and return to their family. Now's the time to invest again in Pennsylvania. Now's the time to be bold, and we can afford to do that. And so I'm asking lawmakers of both parties to join me in not just clapping and celebrating for a company like Gecko, but investing in the next one, and the next one, and the next one, so we can be more competitive again here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is common sense stuff, and now's the time to invest, and I couldn't be more excited to be here to hold Gecko up as an example of what can happen when we make these investments. So Jake, thanks for coming up with that idea in your dorm room. Thanks for having us here today, and I wish you continued success, and we are so excited for you. Sky's the limit, man.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Thank you. And with that, Jake will answer any questions from the media. Kayla?
Question for Jake. Jake, what industry is your top customer? Is it the oil refineries, the power plants with the smokestacks?
It's energy, so that will range from power plants to oil and gas facilities, the biggest one. Defense is growing at the fastest rate, though.
Okay. Thank you all.
Governor, I have
Yeah.
questions for you too.
I thought I could get out of here, Jay. God, I'm just kidding.
The state senate passed a resolution yesterday urging you to send Pennsylvania National Guard troops to the southern border to help prevent illegal immigration and the influx of fentanyl. Will you send National Guard troops to the southern border?
Well, let me be really clear. We got a real challenge on our border, and we got a real challenge in our immigration system, and it needs to be addressed. We need a secure border. We need a responsible pathway to citizenship, and we need to stop talking and start acting. The Congress of the United States has failed through Republican and Democratic administrations to actually do their job and secure our border. What we need right now is not grandstanding and not talking, but we need real action. The Senate of the United States passed a bipartisan bill to do all of that work, to be able to secure our border, to create pathways, to be able to hire the personnel needed to make our border more secure. It passed in a bipartisan, overwhelming vote in the United States Senate. And then the former president, Donald Trump, decided to grandstand instead of solving a problem and asked the House of Representatives in Washington to not run that bill. And because the leadership there is made up of a bunch of Donald Trump sycophants, they decided not to solve a problem, but instead to punt it down the road so they could have some political issue. I want to be clear, the issue at the border is real. It is serious. It needs to be addressed. And the way you address it is by taking concrete action like passing that bipartisan bill. There's also a real question, given some of the legal maneuvering of the state of Texas, and you heard this from the United States Supreme Court just a couple days ago, and that is who's actually in charge at the border right now. There's a dispute between the states, or at least the one state, and the federal government as to who can apprehend someone trying to cross the border. The last thing in the world I'm going to do is put the brave women and men of the Pennsylvania National Guard's lives at risk to be part of some political squabble at the border that Governor Abbott has created. That is not something I'm prepared to do. What we need to do right now is solve the crisis at the border, and the best way to do that is passing the bipartisan bill in Washington. Stop grandstanding, stop playing games. That's what we need to focus on, getting stuff done.
Also, the state senate is debating a bill that would ban mail-in drop-off ballot locations, boxes, so-called boxes, drop boxes. This comes as Allegheny County Board of Elections just yesterday approved 6 drop box locations, even with the support of a Republican board member. Do you call for, would you ban drop boxes or would you expand drop boxes?
Let me speak generally. I'm not going to comment on Allegheny County. County Executive Innamorato is doing an outstanding job, and she can comment on what steps she's taking here in Allegheny County. We need to make it easier for legal eligible voters to vote, not harder. There have been those who have tried to erect barriers to voting, have tried to erect barriers to having people's voices heard in our democracy. You know my track record as Attorney General and Governor. We've tried to make sure that all legal eligible voters have the opportunity to be able to cast their ballot. For those, it makes it easier to drop it off at a drop box, they should be able to do that. For those who want to vote in person, they should be able to do that. In the 2020 election cycle, the last time there were a whole lot of efforts to try and curtail the right to vote, I went to court as Attorney General over 40 times against the former president and his enablers. I went 43-0, they went 0-43, and we protected the right to vote here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I will always stand on the side of protecting the rights of legal eligible voters. You have the right to make your choices at the ballot box, and we'll make sure the will of the people is always respected.
Robotics question.
Thank you.
So, looking at investment money that's coming into the field, robotics is a pretty big industry in the tech scene in Pittsburgh. However, a lot of that money is coming from outside of the Pittsburgh area, Silicon Valley, New York. What can, in your eyes, the city of Pittsburgh do and the robotics scene in the city of Pittsburgh do to maybe get some more money coming within the tech sector here?
I can tell you part of our budget ask of the legislature is to create more funding available to be able to invest in the Pittsburgh tech sector, along with the tech sector all across this Commonwealth. When I laid out my vision for economic development, our first strategy in 20 years, one of the 5 pillars of economic opportunity is robotics and technology. And we're going to put hundreds of millions of dollars of new resources behind efforts to cultivate jobs and create opportunities in this area. We are bullish on robotics. We are bullish on the tech sector. Pittsburgh is home to so much of that. And if our budget passes, we'll have millions more to be able to invest in companies like this. If you guys want to add anything.
Yeah, maybe a comment.
Please.
Yeah, I think what drives like the majority of investments from the VC's mind is like winners. So you don't want to invest in regions. Equity capital doesn't want to be based in environments that don't produce winners. So I think it's very important for companies like Gecko, like Duolingo, like Robotics, like Stack, like other companies, Aurora, to succeed. And we need winners. We need to have not just $1 billion company IPOs. We have to have $10 billion IPOs, $100 billion IPOs. So I think that's going to drive a lot. Also, I think I pushed back there. We just raised another 100 just recently, and it was led by an individual who lives in Sewickley, a group called USIT, which is investing in companies that are doing groundbreaking work on the defense side. So I think I think what that's showing is that there is when you help like to. I think this is why the initiative is so important, because you need winners in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, to be able to drive investment. And actually, the seed investment is an important part. So like I've begun to do some seed investing and Series A investing as well. Make an announcement later. But there's capital that's beginning to find its way here. But I think it's also the founders of companies need to also do their part to push forward and help to bring opportunities to market from their advantage. I think founder-led investing is actually really important that we don't see enough here.
Great. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.